Welcome to day 3 of Picky Eaters Week. Today we're talking about dinner. I'm really excited about my collaboration today with my friend Amber from the channel Housewife Glam Life. I've worked with her before, I love her so much, and she told me her kids are not picky eaters, which I thought was fascinating. I've never heard of that before. So I know she'll be sharing some very delicious recipes, but also I asked her to throw in a couple of tips on getting your kids excited about working with you in the kitchen. She mentioned in a recent video that one of her children made the entire dinner. We are not there yet in my family. I like to bake with my kids, but nobody is cutting things or using the stove quite yet, so I'm really excited to hear everything that she has to share. So after you watch my video, make sure you check out Amber's dinner ideas, which I'll link in my description box below. First up, I'm making ground beef tacos. Now, this is a pretty basic dinner idea, but the reason why I wanted to suggest it is because any dish you can make where you add your own toppings at the end is going to be a total hit, because kids love making their own choices when it comes to the food that ends up on their plate. So they get to pick and choose the toppings that they prefer. For the taco meat, I took a pound of ground beef and I browned it and then drained off the excess grease. To the meat, I added a tablespoon of taco seasoning that I had left over. You can also season the mixture yourself with some garlic powder, onion powder, cumin, chili powder, a little paprika, some oregano, salt, and pepper. Sort of make your own taco seasoning. But it's nice to give it a little bit of extra flavor. And then I added in a can of drained and rinsed black beans along with a small can of tomato sauce. And this makes a nice, saucy, hearty beef mixture for your tacos. And then I prepared all of the delicious toppings. So this night I had shredded iceberg lettuce, diced up avocado, fresh tomatoes chopped up, some shredded mild cheddar cheese, a little bit of sour cream, that's one of my favorite toppings, and then I also had this leftover bean dip, which is a recipe I will link for you in my description box below. It is incredible. I warmed that up, and I also heated up some flour tortillas, and I had some hard taco shells. So each of the kids got to choose their own toppings for their tacos that night. And you can see I also served some fresh pineapple on the side. But some of them spread the bean dip inside, some chose hard shells, some soft. That's Emma, she loves lettuce. For my youngest son, I made a little burrito wrapped up. And then one of my favorite things when I was a kid was the double-decker supreme taco at Taco Bell. So I decided to recreate that. So I spread the bean dip on a flour tortilla, and then I wrapped that around a hard shell and then filled that to the brim with all the toppings. It was so yummy. I always like to serve at least one vegetable at dinner time, and shockingly, all of my kids love roasted Brussels sprouts. Now I have to say I've never made them steamed, but my guess is that they wouldn't like them as much. I feel like when you steam them, they have kind of a squishy texture and a more bitter flavor, but when you roast them, the little leaves that fall off taste almost like crispy potato chips, and then the Brussels sprouts themselves get a little bit caramelized. They're nice and salty. They are just so good. I coat my Brussels sprouts with olive oil, salt, and pepper, and sometimes garlic powder too, and then I roast them in the oven for about 25 to 30 minutes at 425 degrees. I just toss them periodically, and they are really delicious. And you can also get very similar results from an air fryer too. You want to eat a Brussels sprout?
No.
Don't you love them? Next up, I made a brand new to me recipe. My entire family absolutely adores Chick-fil-A, so I decided to make homemade Chick-fil-A sandwiches. And this is a recipe from a blog called Taste Better from Scratch, and my sister Kate recommended this to me. She said this is her family's go-to recipe when they don't want to go out for crispy chicken sandwiches from Chick-fil-A. So I started by brining my chicken in water and pickle juice, and then I created a seasoned flour to coat the outside of the chicken. I'm going to link the blog post for this recipe in my description box below so you can get all of the details and measurements. But basically, you're taking the brined chicken, dipping it into an egg and milk mixture, into the flour, and then back into the eggs and back into the flour. It's a double dip. So I sliced my absolutely gigantic chicken breasts in half a long ways, but what I wish I had done is cut them in half up and down too, so that the pieces were a little bit easier to work with and fried a little bit more evenly. So that's my first tip. The next thing is that when you're frying them, you use about 3 cups of vegetable oil at 350 degrees, so you can see my oil's heating here, and then you just fry them for about 3 to 4 minutes on either side. I struggle with this a little bit. I'm thinking it's because I have a gas stove. It was hard for me to keep the oil at 350 degrees the whole time, despite me keeping a very close eye on my thermometer and adjusting the heat level. In the end, some of my pieces cooked through entirely in the oil, and some of them I removed before they got too dark, and I did have to microwave just for a minute to make sure that the chicken was cooked through inside, because you want the chicken to be at least 165 degrees internally so that it's safe to eat. I took some potato buns, buttered them, and toasted them up on my griddle. I sliced up some dill pickle spears. I typically don't eat any sauce on my sandwich, although the blog post does have a copycat recipe for the Chick-fil-A sauce too. But these tasted even better than a Chick-fil-A sandwich. On another night, I made a very basic Italian pasta salad, but something that works well for me is not making a completely separate dinner for my kids. I try to make something that's sort of made up of different components that I can keep separated, and then for the final meal, it's just put all together. So for example, with this Italian pasta salad, I saved some plain noodles, some of the shredded cheese and diced up salami, and some of the chopped up veggies. These were all separate so I could fill a plate for my picky eaters, but I didn't make a completely separate dinner for them. I could just put them all together to make the tasty Italian pasta salad. 2 other side dishes we've really been enjoying at dinner time are baked beans and corn on the cob. Take a bite. Mmm. Is that good? Do you like it, Andrew?
No. That means yes. Everybody, don't forget, Andrew, whenever he says no, that means yes, probably.
Lastly, I have to give a shout out to 2 family favorites. First of all, whenever I make a pot of sauce and meatballs, my kids love it. And that is the first video I ever recorded on my channel, so I'm gonna leave that complete recipe in my description box below, along with a link to the video, so you can watch me make the whole thing from start to finish. Secondly is my chicken curry soup, or mulligatawny soup. This is based off of a recipe my mom used to make, kind of combined with the Pioneer Woman recipe. But it is a delicious, creamy soup that has a little bit of a unique flavor because you add curry powder and some brown sugar into the broth, and everybody really loves it. This is another meal that has lots of toppings, so the kids can pick and choose what they like at the end when they're garnishing their dinners. So these are just some quick shots of me putting together the meal. It includes carrots and diced apples and garlic and typically onion, although I didn't have it on hand that day. And then you saute some cubed up chicken, remove that, and saute the veggies. You coat them in flour and the curry powder, and then you add lots of chicken broth and some half and half. And then at the end, you're gonna add in the apples, add the chicken back in, and just allow it to simmer together so that everything is kind of softened and marries together. Now on this particular day, I added a half a cup of green peas too. And I think a lot of extra veggies would be great in here. Broccoli, chickpeas, even some cubed up sweet potatoes would be good. You'll just have to test your veggies to make sure they're completely cooked through. I typically serve this over a bed of rice, although this night I had some leftover egg noodles that I used. I think my kids like this even better. So here are the toppings that I like to serve with this soup. My favorite are the raisins, plus there are peanuts, or you could use cashews, which would be equally crunchy and yummy. There is unsweetened shredded coconut flakes. You could use sweetened too, whatever you have on hand, and chopped tomatoes, which are really nice because they're a little bit acidic and tart, and they kind of burst with juiciness on the soup. They're really good. When I was little, my mom made a dish very similar to this, and in addition to some of the toppings I mentioned, she also would serve diced bell peppers, some chopped up hard-boiled eggs, and some diced pineapple. So this is the finished product, and you can see Jack had a lot of fun picking out his toppings, and seriously, all my kids will eat this up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up if you like my dinner recipe ideas. Thank you so much for joining me here in my kitchen, and I'll see you tomorrow for snack time for picky eaters.